The mysterious visitor. In the Fantastic Four First Steps, the post-credit scene officially introduces Doctor Doom to the MCU. The sequence takes place 4 years after the film's main events. Inside the Baxter building, Sue Storm is taking care of her son, Franklin Richards. For those unfamiliar with the comics, Franklin isn't an ordinary child. He's considered one of the most powerful characters in Marvel. At one point, Sue leaves him alone for just a few seconds. When she returns, she immediately realizes something is wrong. Standing in front of the boy is a man wearing Doctor Doom's classic green cloak. He's kneeling before the child while holding his iconic metal mask. The most intriguing detail is that the camera never shows his face. Even though Robert Downey Jr. has already been announced in the role, Marvel deliberately keeps his appearance completely hidden. Meanwhile, Franklin calmly reaches out and touches the visitor's face, as if he isn't standing in front of a threat. That small gesture suggests there's something important behind the villain's identity and his scars. The scene serves as a direct setup for Avengers Doomsday. Everything points to Doom's interest being connected to Franklin's nearly limitless powers, making the boy one of the central pieces of the next major event. Steve's choice. In Avengers Endgame, Steve Rogers' farewell becomes one of the most important scenes for understanding his return in Doomsday. After defeating Thanos, the Avengers have one final task: return all the Infinity Stones to the exact moments from which they were taken. For the mission, Steve puts on the quantum suit, takes a briefcase containing the stones, and also carries Mjolnir. The plan seems simple. Steve would leave, return everything, and come back just 5 seconds later. But when the countdown ends, something goes wrong. The platform activates, and he simply doesn't return. While Bruce tries to figure out what happened, Bucky realizes the answer before anyone else. Sitting on a bench by the lake is Steve Rogers, now a much older man. He reveals that after returning the stones, he decided to stay in the past and live the life he'd always dreamed of. He built a life alongside Peggy Carter and finally found the peace he'd been searching for. Before saying goodbye, he hands his shield to Sam Wilson, officially passing on the Captain America legacy. This scene becomes even more meaningful when we remember the Avengers Doomsday teaser. In the preview, Steve is seen arriving on a motorcycle at the same house shown at the end of Endgame. As a melancholic version of the Avengers theme plays, he stores his old uniform inside a closet, like someone who truly left the life of a hero behind. But the biggest surprise comes moments later. Steve is shown holding a baby in his arms, suggesting that he built a family during the years he spent with Peggy. The teaser ends by confirming that Steve Rogers will return in Doomsday, indicating that the life he chose after Endgame may play an important role in the upcoming multiverse events. Holding the multiverse together. In Loki Season 2, the God of Mischief reaches the most unexpected ending of his entire journey. After discovering that he can control his time slipping, Loki spends countless years studying and reliving the same events. His goal is to find a way to stop the destruction of the temporal loom, the enormous machine responsible for organizing the timelines. The problem is that every attempt ends in failure. That's when he discovers the truth. The loom wasn't created to protect the multiverse. Instead, it serves as a containment system built by He Who Remains. If anything gets out of control, every branch is erased, leaving only the sacred timeline. Realizing there is no perfect solution, Loki makes a radical decision. He walks alone toward the temporal loom and destroys the machine. Moments later, he watches the timelines begin dying before his eyes. Then comes one of Marvel's most beautiful scenes. Using his own magic, Loki holds each timeline in his hands and breathes new energy into them. Slowly, they transform into a gigantic cosmic tree inspired by Yggdrasil from Norse mythology. At the center of it all, Loki takes his place upon a throne and begins sustaining the entire multiverse. This scene is essential for Doomsday because it literally places Loki at the center of existence. While heroes and villains battle across realities, he's the one keeping every timeline alive. In other words, any threat to the multiverse inevitably reaches Loki first. The mysterious signal. In Shang-Chi, the first post-credit scene immediately puts him on the Avengers' radar. Shang-Chi and Katie are inside the Sanctum Sanctorum, the mystical center of the Marvel Universe, after being summoned by Wong. There, they meet with Bruce Banner, who is still recovering from the events of Endgame, as well as Captain Marvel, who joins through a holographic transmission. The purpose of the meeting is simple: to figure out what the 10 rings actually are, but the answer is anything but simple. Bruce says there's no known technology like them, and Carol Danvers confirms she's never seen anything similar. The strangest part comes next. The heroes discover that the rings are far older than anything connected to Wenwu's recorded history, and when Shang-Chi activates them, something unexpected happens. They emit a mysterious signal pointing toward an unknown origin somewhere in the universe. Before anyone can reach a conclusion, Carol receives an urgent call and leaves the conversation. Bruce jokingly comments that the meeting has turned into a circus. Wong, far more serious, warns Shang-Chi that his life has changed forever. That mysterious signal from the 10 rings becomes one of the biggest unanswered questions, connecting Shang-Chi directly to the cosmic threats that could explode in Avengers Doomsday, the Incursion. In Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, the first post-credits scene shows Stephen Strange peacefully walking through the streets of New York. But that peaceful moment doesn't last long. Out of nowhere, he's approached by a mysterious woman. That woman is Clea, an incredibly powerful sorceress connected to the mystic arts and to the balance of the multiverse itself. Without wasting any time, she immediately delivers a serious accusation. Strange's actions have caused an incursion, a collision between universes capable of destroying entire realities. At that moment, everything changes. Clea isn't asking for his help. She's practically holding him responsible for the collapse of an entire reality. In response, she tears open space-time itself, creating a portal directly into the dark dimension and making it clear that the situation is urgent. Before stepping through, Clea tests Strange's courage one last time. He answers without hesitation, saying that he isn't afraid. That's when the most important detail appears. Stephen reveals the third eye on his forehead, a direct consequence of using the Darkhold for too long, a clear sign that he didn't escape the events of the film unscathed. Without hesitation, he steps into the portal alongside Clea. This scene is essential for Doomsday because it officially introduces the concept of incursions into the MCU, something that in the comics is directly connected to the collapse of the multiverse and the rise of threats like Doctor Doom. It also establishes Strange and Clea as active players in the fight against these ruptures, showing that the next level of danger is already underway. A reason to fight. The ending of Thor: Love and Thunder is far more important to the future of the MCU than it initially seems. After defeating Gore and adopting Love, the villain's daughter, Thor finally finds something he'd been searching for without even realizing it: a family. For the first time since losing Odin, Frigga, Loki, and his closest Asgardian friends, he stops fighting simply because it's his duty and finally has someone worth coming home to. The sequence presents this new reality in a simple way. Thor is shown wearing an apron while making pancakes for Love inside the ship where they live. The girl displays all the rebellious personality you'd expect from a child, refusing to eat, wearing Thor's oversized boots, and even drawing on Mjolnir with crayons. Despite the constant complaints, it's obvious that they've developed an incredibly close relationship. Between playful teasing and jokes, they sincerely tell each other, "I love you," before heading off on another heroic adventure. For a long time, this scene seemed like nothing more than a lighthearted ending to the movie. However, the second Doomsday teaser completely changes its meaning. In the preview, Thor appears years later, alone in a dark forest, kneeling before Stormbreaker while praying to Odin. Unlike the impulsive warrior we've always known, he isn't asking for victory, glory, or power. His only wish is to survive the coming battle and return to Love. The teaser intercuts shots of Love as an older girl, making it clear that she has become Thor's greatest motivation. That directly connects both scenes. Love and Thunder showed the birth of this unlikely family. Doomsday reveals what's now at stake: the future of Wakanda. In Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, after T'Challa's death, Shuri becomes the new Black Panther, but she doesn't step into the role with a clear mind. She's emotionally shattered, driven by grief and anger. That burden reaches its peak when Wakanda enters a direct conflict with Talokan, led by Namor. During the final battle, Wakanda uses sonic technology to force the Talokan warriors out of the water, stripping away their greatest advantage. At the center of it all, Shuri faces Namor alone and manages to weaken him. She even gets the chance to take her revenge, but at the last second she stops herself after remembering her family and the endless cycle of destruction that killing him would continue. That decision completely changes the tone of the story, ending the war without an absolute victory and opening the door to a tense coexistence between Wakanda and Talokan. This ending already points toward the future of the MCU, where local conflicts are no longer the greatest threat, and the latest Doomsday teaser makes that crystal clear. Shuri walks through the desert alongside M'Baku. Namor appears wearing a brand new suit, and then M'Baku comes face to face with the Thing from the Fantastic Four. It's the first meeting between the two worlds, and it happens right in Wakanda. What started as a war over territory has now pulled Wakanda into the center of something much bigger. With Doctor Doom on the horizon, the question is no longer whether Wakanda will survive. It's whether the entire universe will. The end of the Marvels. In the Marvels, the main story follows Carol Danvers, Monica Rambeau, and Kamala Khan as they deal with a cosmic crisis. At the end of the movie, Monica sacrifices herself to seal an interdimensional rift and disappears in the process.
Well, we have to stay.
We think she's dead, but she's not. In the post-credit scene, she wakes up inside a laboratory, completely confused, trying to understand where she is. Then comes the shock. Sitting beside her bed is Maria Rambeau, her mother, except it's not really her mother. This version of Maria is alive, healthy, and completely different from the one Monica knew in her own universe. The tension rises quickly because Monica tries to hug her, overwhelmed with emotion, only to be met with a cold stare as if she were a complete stranger. And that's when the MCU drops the bombshell. Walking into the room is Hank McCoy, Beast from the X-Men. He explains that Monica isn't in her own universe at all. She's in an alternate reality. Here's the twist. In this universe, Maria Rambeau is binary, a super-powered hero connected to cosmic energy. Even more interesting, Beast mentions that Professor Professor X is already following the situation. That single line directly connects the MCU to the classic X-Men films and opens a massive door for the future. This version of Beast is once again played by Kelsey Grammer, who previously portrayed the character in X-Men: The Last Stand and Days of Future Past. The New Avengers. Thunderbolts follows a team of anti-heroes recruited by Valentina Allegra de Fontaine for the government's dirty missions. Now, months after the movie's main events, that same team has been completely rebranded. The scene takes place about 14 months after the film. The former Avengers Tower has now been purchased and renovated by Valentina. That detail alone reveals her intention to take the legacy of Earth's mightiest heroes and turn it into something controlled by the government. Inside the headquarters, the team walks in wearing matching uniforms, clearly uncomfortable with the idea of becoming official. The group discusses their biggest problem. Sam Wilson, Captain America, is also assembling his own Avengers team. He's even filed a legal claim over the use of the name Avengers. Bucky mentions that he tried to settle the issue face to face, but the conversation obviously didn't end well. Then everything changes. The base's sensors suddenly go off. An extra-dimensional reading appears. The main screen displays a spacecraft entering Earth 616's atmosphere, and it's no ordinary ship. The symbol gives everything away. It's the Fantastic Four. That's the exact moment the entire scene changes. This isn't just another team arriving, it's a parallel reality entering the MCU's main universe, setting the stage for the multiversal chaos that will unfold in Doomsday. The Dark X-Men. In the Doomsday teasers, the X-Men are introduced with an incredibly dark, almost apocalyptic atmosphere. The footage blends nostalgia from Fox's original films with a much more devastated visual style, making it feel as though this universe is already on the brink of collapse. The Xavier Institute lies completely in ruins. The X-Mansion has been abandoned, bearing the scars of a recent war. The school's iconic EX symbol is barely recognizable beneath rubble and smoke. The message is simple. The X-Men have already lost long before the movie even begins. At the center of the destruction stand two familiar faces. Charles Xavier, played by Patrick Stewart, and Magneto, played by Ian McKellen. This time they aren't enemies. They're sitting together, silently playing chess with overwhelming tension hanging in the air. Magneto delivers a monologue about survival and the end of eras, while Xavier simply watches. By the end, the two are shown holding hands, as though preparing themselves for the final end of their reality. The scene then cuts to James Marsden's Cyclops, kneeling amid the destruction. His suit closely resembles the classic animated series design. He loses emotional control, removes his visor, and unleashes a massive optic blast. Right behind him, a Sentinel appears, confirming that mutant hunting robots are attacking on a massive scale. And this is where the fan theories really take over. Leaked footage suggests this could become the film's turning point. The Avengers and the Fantastic Four initially clash with the X-Men, until Dr. Doom seizes control of the Sentinels and turns the battle against everyone. For now, it's only a theory, but if the leaks are accurate, this could become the moment that completely redefines the war in Doomsday. Otherworlds. In the post-credit scene of Captain America: Brave New World, Sam Wilson decides to visit Samuel Stearns, the villain known as the Leader, who's being held inside a maximum security prison. The Raft isn't an ordinary prison, it's a floating facility built specifically to contain superpowered criminals, so the atmosphere already feels heavy from the start. Sam enters Stearns' cell and mocks him, reminding him that his plan failed. The Leader had bet everything on the chaos surrounding President Thaddeus Ross spiraling out of control and reshaping the world in his favor. But things didn't go the way he expected. Samuel Stearns, who first appeared back in The Incredible Hulk, still possesses his extraordinary intellect. He doesn't behave like someone who's been defeated, quite the opposite. Calmly, almost arrogantly, he explains that he doesn't rely on guesses. He relies on probability calculated on a massive scale. To him, the future isn't unpredictable, it's mathematics. Then comes the line that completely changes the tone of the scene.
Do you think this is the only world? We'll see what happens when you have to protect this place from the others.
He suggests that there are other realities, other worlds, and that what's coming is far bigger than anyone realizes. He practically confirms that the multiverse is about to collide. His warning is direct and unsettling. There isn't just one world to save. There are many, and not all of them will survive what's coming. The final snap. In Avengers Endgame, Tony Stark reaches the defining moment of his entire journey. During the final battle, Thanos manages to reclaim the Infinity Gauntlet and prepares to snap his fingers once again. But there's one detail he never notices. Using his armor's nanotechnology, Tony secretly transfers the Infinity Stones into his own hand. When Thanos snaps, nothing happens.
Inevitable.
That's when Tony reveals the stones, looks Thanos straight in the eye and says,
And I am Iron Man.
Victory comes, but at an enormous cost. The power of the stones destroys Tony's body and he collapses, ultimately dying. This scene is essential for Doomsday because it marks the end of the greatest hero of the Infinity Saga. Ironically, years later, Robert Downey Jr. would return to Marvel, not as Tony Stark, but as Dr. Doom, the character expected to become the centerpiece of the MCU's next multiversal saga. A major fan theory suggests that this Dr. Doom could actually be a corrupted Tony Stark variant. Robert Downey Jr. has publicly denied that connection. However, when asked whether Tony's death in Endgame is connected to Doom's arrival, the film's directors gave deliberately vague answers, only fueling the theory even further. On top of that, early reports claim that Doomsday will begin immediately after the events of Endgame, almost serving as a direct continuation of its ending. The connection is reportedly so significant that Marvel is planning to re-release Endgame in theaters with additional scenes designed to better prepare audiences for Doomsday.
Assemble.
Normal life. The second post-credit scene in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 shows Peter Quill trying to live an ordinary life on Earth after spending years traveling across the galaxy. He's now living with his biological grandfather, Jason Quill, an ordinary man who represents the complete opposite of the cosmic chaos that has defined Peter's life. The scene begins with Peter sitting at the kitchen table, eating a bowl of cereal. Jason sits beside him reading the newspaper, completely unaware that his grandson has saved the universe multiple times. The newspaper features a headline about an alien abduction involving Kevin Bacon, a direct callback to the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special. Jason encourages Peter to embrace a normal life, suggesting that he get a regular job, or even help take care of the neighbor's garden. The scene ends with the message, the legendary Star-Lord will return, leaving Peter's future in the MCU wide open, and setting the stage for his possible return in Doomsday. So, is there any scene we missed in this video? Let us know in the comments. On your screen is a video where we show every single time Tony Stark learned from his mistakes. Click and check it out. See you there.